How can the Raiders save their entire franchise? I figured out who's to blame for the Cincinnati Bengals 0-3 start. How do my Chargers deal with the injuries hitting the team again? And I've got my Chiefs gear on today for an interview with the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid. All that and much more on this week's episode of NFL Mike's Corner. Hi, I'm NFL Mike, an NFL content creator that creates NFL content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and twice on Sundays. If you're an NFL fan, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel so you can be here every single week that I upload. And don't forget to turn on those notifications as well for the clips that we upload throughout the week at random times. All that stuff I talked about in the intro, we're going to be talking about on today's show, and we will be talking about all 32 NFL teams in some way, shape, or form in my power ranking segment, the Mike's Pickems Challenge, where I'll be picking every single game of Week 4, or in our Week 3 reaction segment with Leel from the It's Not 1999 Anymore podcast. Let me get that right. It's Not 1999 Anymore pod, otherwise known as the 99 pod. And what they're trying to highlight, obviously, is that it's not the 1990s anymore. It's a new era. We got new sports on TV, so we got to bring some new media, some new heat. These guys, they bring fire. They bring passion to their takes, and Leel joined me to react to every game of Week 3. Well, at least the biggest moments. I will put his links in the description like I do for every guest every single week here on the show now. But let's cut to that conversation. Very fond decade in my heart. I was born in that decade, but we moved on, right? And I got the host of the Not 99 pod, Real Leel TV. What's up, man? How you doing? I'm excited to talk Week 3 with you.
Same, man. I'm excited to be on here, man. Indeed, it's not 1999 anymore. Times are changing. The world is changing, and sports is changing. I'm looking forward to the show.
Oh, yeah. We're going to bring some heat. I appreciate you for coming on. This is the 3rd episode, so making history, if we will. You know, when this thing blows up, it's one of the biggest podcasts a TikToker's ever made in the history of time. 3rd episode. Look at you go.
Man, I'm happy to be on it, man. Let's make some history.
Let's make some history, starting with some team that's not making so much history. And I know that all the Raiders fans are tuned into this because me and the Raiders fans don't get along. And what I have to say to the Raiders fans in the start of this season is, ha! I told you. This team failed again this week. Let all of their fans down in their home opener here against the Panthers. And it kind of went exactly how I expected it, Leel. For anyone that was listening last week, I was saying that this Andy Dalton surprise is not going to be a pleasant one for the Raiders defense, who, in my opinion, had been struggling up until this point, stopping the run and stopping the pass. And I thought maybe all of this was going to come downhill on the Raiders defense this week. And sure enough, you get someone in there that has some confidence and has nothing to lose, truly, willing to just throw it up. With these weapons, it was going to start to become something. And I honestly thought when I made the prediction, I picked the Panthers to beat the Raiders last week. I was being a hater. I was trolling a little bit. But that feeling, those thoughts, those were real. That made me feel like this game could at least be close or go the Panthers' way. What was your reactions to this game? I have a lot of people tuned into this that are very interested in this game and probably going to tune out of this as soon as we stop talking about this, or as soon as I give more of my hatred.
Yeah, they're going to want to stay tuned, man, because we got a show. You know, first of all, if you're the Raiders, what are you doing losing to the Panthers at home? Okay, very unexpected, very unacceptable. And I think when you have a guy like Andy Dalton, who clearly was never fond of being on the bench, you always felt that he was a starter in this league. You know, Bryce Young got benched. They was losing the locker room over there in Carolina. And he was, obviously going to play with that motivation. And remember last year, that one game that he played for the Panthers, he had 360 yards, I believe, in that game, and he performed well. So he was just waiting on that second chance opportunity, which definitely came this week. That shocked everybody, including myself. I was not expecting Bryce Young to be benched so early this year. But that's how the league goes sometime. And Andy Dalton got the call, and he balled. He elevated the roster immediately. I remember last week, Adam Thielen looking like he wanted to go to Thailand, okay, after the game was over, like he wanted to go away. I mean, he was frustrated. You know, Deontay Johnson was frustrated, and Deontay Johnson had 8 catches for 122 yards. Okay, even my guy Chuba Hubbard was out here balling. He had over 100 yards in the game as well. I think it was Xavier Leggett, the rookie. He had a big play down the field. So almost immediately you see Andy Dalton elevate the roster, and they won the game. They punched the Raiders in the mouth. They didn't play with no physicality whatsoever. Everything was just so basic: run, pass, same script. And the Raiders got a lot of issues right now.
Yeah, that sounds like Luke Getsy, man. That's what we've seen. And it's kind of been exposed already at this point that the Nathaniel Hackett, the Luke Getsy, and all that hype around those guys and their offenses are Aaron Rodgers built. Aaron Rodgers is a special player that can run that very simple but also advanced offense where it's all about split-second decisions, 1-inch decisions. We saw that throw to Garrett Wilson on the goal line. That's 1 inch from being a pick six, and that's just stuff that Aaron Rodgers excels at and is maybe the greatest, if not second greatest, of all time at. And they're trying to bring that out originally to Denver with Nathaniel Hackett, to Chicago with Luke Getsy. Didn't work in either spot. Didn't think it was going to work here with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell either. And I don't even think the Raiders wanted Getsy because remember, they originally had Cliff Kingsbury, who I'm not a huge fan of because of a lot of stuff that happens in that documentary I saw about Johnny Manziel, but give him some credit for what the Washington Commanders offense is doing right now. I mean, they have the worst defense in football and no one's even talking about it. All they're talking about is Jaden Daniels.
I mean, they couldn't tackle last night whatsoever. I seen about 6-7 missed tackles in that entire game, and it didn't matter.
Terrible. It is god awful. And I'm going to talk about that more. We're going to talk about that more when we get to some Cowboys talk here in a second. But the Luke Getsy offense has not worked. The Nathaniel Hackett offense has not worked separated from Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think it's ever going to work. So, and AP and them didn't think so either. They wanted Cliff Kingsbury in there. They didn't want Luke Getsy. So that's big problems for the Raiders, like you're saying. And this offense doesn't really have like a path forward to serious improvement. They don't have some hot backup. Like I feel like benching AOC kind of like just killed his confidence right then and there, killed any hope that this guy is the Raiders franchise quarterback because they benched him for Gardner Minshew of all people. It's not even like they benched him for a known veteran that's been in the league, been to the Super Bowl, like a Jimmy Garoppolo last season. That didn't work out for them. Really, when it comes down to it, Leel, and I'll let you go here because I know I've been ranting for a second. On both sides of the ball for the Raiders, their D-line, which is monstrous, and I'll admit that, and they were very good against the Chargers before they started to suffer some injuries here in the next couple of games. The D-line can only be as good as the secondary, which I think stinks, in my opinion. And I will be honest, if they have a good secondary, I'm saying they have a great D-line. But when you're getting cooked right off the snap of the ball, catch and throw, Andy Dalton's got Deontay Johnson wide open, the D-line can't do anything. And on the other side of the ball, this weapon core with Davante Adams, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, they almost have too many weapons on that side of the ball, can only be as good as the offensive line, which sucks. The rushing attack sucks this year. And all of the Raiders fans were talking about Zeus and how he's going to have this breakout year. And I kept telling them behind who is getting him the space to have this breakout year that they've been talking about. Both sides of the ball have major problems. And we're going to talk about what we think the Raiders should do going forward from here. But anything else you want to say here before we kind of build out a quick rough draft for a plan for the Raiders?
Yeah, I think we can get right into that plan, because I think immediately, you have to look at, firing the offensive coordinator. He should have never been hired to begin with. And I understand that there was a lot of options, being taken off the table, but he ain't able. He's not that dude whatsoever. We saw that evident in Chicago. And like I said, you're watching the game, everything is run, pass. Okay, literally, it was so predictable. If it was predictable for me, clearly it was predictable for the Panthers defense. And I think one of the moves that they should have definitely made, and I understand it's not going to be an easy thing to, really think through, but why is Davante Adams still here? Okay, you got a guy, a wide receiver, leaving the prime of his career, but still arguably could be a top 10 wide receiver in the league still. Maybe if you had a quarterback higher than that, he's expensive on your team. Clearly, there's no pathway forward of offensive success. Why is he still here? trade that man. They should have traded him in the offseason because the only thing that he's going to do is complain. This guy got a reputation. Okay, clearly. All right. He does not want that reputation to be tarnished. And clearly right now it is. So I think you should trade that man. Every time I look at Davante Adams, he's talking about a whole different quarterback other than Gardner-Minshew. He's talking about Jaden Daniels. He's talking about Derek Carr. He's talking about Aaron Rodgers. He's talking about Real Leel. I mean, he's talking about everybody else other than Gardner-Minshew. Okay, trade that man. That would be my next move. And they got other issues, offensive line issues. You got to attack that through the draft. You got to attack that via free agency maybe next year. There's a lot of, moves that need to be made, and it's probably going to take Jesus turning water into wine.
That's what it feels like. I completely agree with you, and that's why my take here and my plan for the Raiders is to kind of punt on the season already. I mean, you entered the year in the situation that they were in at quarterback, in the situation that they were in at head coach, and they just kind of pieced it together and are throwing it out there, and it's not worked out immediately here. So, I mean, there's a path forward to where they can turn this into something of a positive, and I'm with you. This team just lost to what we view as the worst team in football, and they got smoked by them. I mean, how bad are the Raiders? I think that they're not the worst team in the league. I don't think that they're even worse than the Carolina Panthers, honestly. I think that if they redo that game in a couple weeks and the Raiders get their feet under them, I may be on the Raiders' side to win that thing. But they're not good enough to where go ahead.
They had a puzzling quarterback situation. I mean, you start there. When I looked at their quarterback plan, that was by far the worst plan in the NFL, along with the worst offensive coordinator hire. That was never going to gel. Even the Vikings, they didn't believe in Sam Darnold clearly by virtue of giving him a 1-year deal and a flat fee, basically off the clearance rack. But they had a plan. They was going to ease in, J.J. McCarthy, a 2-step plan. And look how Sam Darnold is playing right now. So they had the worst quarterback plan of any team this offseason, and they're reaping the benefits of that plan.
Yeah, and the Raiders have to just really, if they, from an unbiased Chargers fans perspective, before we move on to talk about the Chargers, they need to go ahead and finally put it in that they're rebuilding, like from scratch. They need to go ahead and accept defeat and fully rebuild it because they've been in this constant cycle where they are just right there on the edge. They're average with their current quarterback, Derek Carr, and they think that they need to do these last few things to get over the hump. But really, you're not getting over the hump. You're just staying average and staying out of range to get the quarterback that's going to put them over the hump. What they need to do, they need to avoid all of that. And I agree with you. The first step, I would start Minshew for a few more weeks, first of all, and I would get in Getsy's ear and say, hey, man, I know that you're the offensive coordinator for this season. We don't know what's going on going forward, but we need to feed Davante Adams right now. So Gardner Minshew, Davante Adams, go out there for 2 to 3 more games. Try and win every single one. Who knows? If you go 3-0, if you go 2-1, things are turned around and you can kind of pivot your plan from there. But let's say, realistically, the Raiders continue to lose, continue to struggle, but you're feeding Davante Adams, building his trade value. Then you send him at the trade deadline. That's going to be where you're going to get the max value for Adams right now. The suitors and the teams that are going to be ready to go all in and get Davante Adams are going to be endless. And I think that the Raiders can almost get what they gave for him back. Almost. Probably a 3rd-round pick at least, at minimum, for Davante Adams right now in the middle of the season. And then once Davante Adams is out of there, that clears up space for the youngsters to get better. That gives you a reason to throw AOC back out there when his receiver's not going to throw a fit, when he doesn't throw him the ball every single freaking play. You ride out the rest of the season, you win 5 games, and you're in position next draft to draft the actual franchise quarterback and start rebuilding this thing with the cap space that you saved from it. And build Antonio Pierce's defense up. That's something but what I think is going to happen, what I worry, or I hope happens.
He's a defensive guy. So you got to give him the parts to be able to coach them guys up and to get them playing elite level football.
Exactly. And what I hope happens is that they just do the same thing they've been doing. They're going to have QB controversy all season. The fan base is going to be demanding for the backup at all times. for the rest of the year. They're going to stay like an average team, hold on to Davante Adams, and these weapons are going to carry them. Max Crosby's going to make those plays in those close games to get them enough wins to get to 8 wins, 7 wins. And they're going to wake up September 1st of 2025 in the exact same spot with Sam Darnold as quarterback, AOC as backup, Davante Adams pissed off out wide, all these weapons, but no offensive line. And they're just going to keep spinning the wheels on this same thing over and over again.
They won a couple games last year that maybe if they didn't win those games, they would have been in position to get a quarterback. They may have been able to leapfrog over Denver. They would have been able to get Bo Nix. They would have been able to get somebody other than Gardner-Johnson. Yeah,
Michael Penix. And yeah, it's kind of a disservice to invest this much in the weapons, draft capital and cap wise, and then not get a quarterback in there. I think that the path forward should be very clear for Tom Telesco, the former Chargers GM, but Raiders fans, he tortured us for years. Yes, we would get excited about some of the additions, some of the draft picks. A lot of that stuff was exciting, but when you look at the whole of the Chargers over the last decade with Tom Telesco as a general manager, they've had a bunch of teams that have had no depth, and they've hired 5 coaches. And as Tom Telesco continues to do that in Vegas, I'm going to be a very happy Chargers fan. But I was not a very happy Chargers fan on Sunday, Leel, because the Chargers fell to the Steelers, suffering their first loss of the season. And with this loss came much more than a loss. We're going to talk about the Chargers and how they probably just dodged like 5 bullets, Matrix style, with some of these injuries. But did you catch the game, or at least the highlights? Look into this and tell me what you think about the Chargers-Steelers game. 2 teams that came into this undefeated, looking to kind of surprise everyone in their divisions.
Yeah, man. For starters, I didn't think Justin Herbert should have played in this game. Clearly, he was not 100%, and he probably would have served the team better if he didn't play. And I'm a Herbert guy. I like Herbert, but him hopping on, on one leg, obviously had that injury in training camp, and to see him in a walking boot and being questionable for a more important game coming up against the Kansas City Chiefs, you probably would have wanted to sit him against the Steelers. I did see a little bit of the highlights of the game. I have no interest in watching Steelers football. They to 1999. For me, it's not 1999 anymore. Clearly, it's not. I don't think their formula is, sustainable for long term. I think it's just, okay, we'll do the bare minimum, get some W's in the column, come playoff time. They would be obliterated by Buffalo, Kansas City. I don't need to talk about them. But for the Chargers, I think when you got a guy like Jim Harbaugh, the expectation was that it wasn't going to be a quick fix. But then again, it's hope because it's Jim Harbaugh and we respect his resume, right? But unfortunately, injuries are stockpiling to the point where even Jim Harbaugh can't coach injuries, okay? We get to that point in the situation right now. But it's good to see Quentin Johnson, having a couple touchdowns like he did on Sunday. And last week he had a touchdown as well. That's a hopeful sign because you desperately need him to take another leap. And, Loud McConkey, I like that kid as well. I would like to see him involved a little bit more. But Justin Herbert shouldn't have played. He did. It's unfortunate. The Steelers won. And I think the Chargers, they got questions that they need to answer in regards to the health of their quarterback looking ahead to Kansas City next week.
I agree with that. And, I agree with most of that. I personally was okay with Herbert playing because of what the reasons that Harbaugh gave and was talking about in the pregame leading up to it, which I'll talk about. But I will say my opinion on this upcoming game is completely different than my opinion going into that Steelers game. And you're probably thinking it's because I saw him get hurt in the Steelers game. But there's also more to it than just that. For one, I feel like in this first half, they did such a great job at keeping Herbert clean. He didn't take any hits. Every single play call was a quick pass if he did have to throw it. And if he was going to roll out, it was off of 3 or 4 straight runs, like where the play action was going to be good. And at the end of the second half, a lot of people probably didn't catch it because they're watching their own games and stuff. But this passing offense was heating up. All of McConkey's catches in this game and his stat line from this, which was 4 catches or so, were from a drive right before half where the Chargers were just marching on the Steelers secondary unconsciously, even with Herbert injured. Then Rashawn Slater gets hurt. Joe Alt starts to struggle with TJ Watt, who he played very good against for about 3.5 quarters, and it's going to start to break down. I mean, it's TJ freaking Watt. Those two things start to happen. Herbert gets hurt after a Slater Peck injury that puts the backup tackle in, who gives up a play like on the second play in the game that gets Herbert whacked by these Steelers guys. And I feel like they should have had Herbert in this game because of what Herbert was saying before. How can I pull the leash back on my warrior? And I understand that it's an ankle injury. It's very scary, but they had a very short leash on him. He was limping one time. He took one hit in this game, Leel, and that one hit took him out of the game. So they were super cautious with it. They weren't pushing it too hard. They weren't calling QB draw. They weren't using him the way they would use him normally if he was fully healthy. And most importantly of it all, it was working. And I think we're having a much different conversation right now if he stays healthy in that game, because the Chargers had ran the ball. Not a lot of success, but it was opening up the passing game, and the Steelers were either going to have to back off and defend the pass, or Herbert was going to go for another 150 in the second half, maybe 175 at 2 or 3 touchdowns. So it's tough that it happened in the third quarter when the Chargers offense was heating up, and it brings me to this upcoming game against the Chiefs. Slater's not going to play in this one. Joe Alt's not going to play in this one. The Chargers are probably down Josh Palmer, their wide receiver one, their safety blanket, their guy that they go to when that blitz is coming downhill and Herbert identifies it and says, hot, hot, hot. We got to go to Palmer right now. He's not going to be out there probably this week without both tackles. Yeah, I see why. The strategy would be, let's protect the warrior from the warrior a little bit more than the previous week where the tackle's been playing great. The quarterback was very confident in himself, and the leash was as short as I've ever seen it. Like, I've never seen Herbert yanked from a game like that. What do you think about this upcoming game? I don't think the Chargers are going to play Herbert in this upcoming game because Joe Alt is almost for sure out. Rashawn Slater is extremely questionable. We're talking about 2 backup tackles against, a very game Chiefs D-line.
Yeah, you don't want to put Herbert out there, in that situation with your missing offensive lineman, especially going up against Chris Jones, who we all know can wreck a game. And what Steve Spagnuolo could do as a defensive coordinator doesn't get talked about enough. His impact on the Chiefs dynasty and where they are, him being able to disguise blitzes at the line of scrimmage and know, how to mix things up to confuse the quarterback. I always tell people, when we want to separate quarterbacks and be like, oh, okay, it's Mahomes going up against Lamar. It's Mahomes going up against Josh Allen. Yeah, kind of, Captain Obvious. But no, it's Josh Allen going up against Steve Spagnuolo. It's Lamar Jackson going up against Steve Spagnuolo. He is a different animal. So you combine that with the beast they have up front, led by Chris Jones, and the missing offensive lineman, and couple that with him being hurt. You don't want to throw him out there in that situation, even though it's tempting. That's the only pathway to beat the Chiefs, where Patrick Mahomes is playing Justin Herbert. So by you setting him out, it's basically kind of like booking an L, especially with all the calls the Chiefs be getting. Okay, don't even get me started over there. So it's a tough pill to swallow, which is why I would have preferred to see him sit out, on Sunday compared to the game against Mahomes. I'd have been looking forward to that.
Me too. And I might have went to the game if that was the case. With Herbert out, I'm probably definitely not going to the game. Yeah, and it's even you flip it to the other side of the ball. Derwin James obviously getting suspended, which we'll talk about here in a second. Joey Bosa is banged up. He's probably taking a week off. And looking forward, who the Chargers played next week, Leel, after the Chiefs?
They play next.
Nobody. They have a bye week. So you can give basically all your star players a double bye week.
2 weeks. Yep.
And go into it after week 5 at 2-2 still. Not even that bad of a record with the team that looked really good for those first 2 games. An offense that looked borderline unstoppable on the ground for those first 2 games. And again, I talked about it with the Raiders. Can't emphasize it enough. First year of Jim Harbaugh, getting those youngsters out there, giving them a chance to kind of prove themselves here in a random regular season game in week 4. It isn't necessarily a terrible thing. We will have a veteran quarterback that's pulled off some crazy freaking upsets in his career. Tyler Heineke out there. Like, let's roll the dice. Let's get these guys a big game while the rest of our guys get healthy and unsuspended, which I want to touch on because we're running out of time here already. And and I want to talk about this. I know my Chargers fans out there want to hear our reaction. I'll give you my take, but what do you think about Derwin James being suspended for kind of making a routine tackle over the middle of the field this weekend?
I mean, look, you look at Derwin James' track record. He has 5 unnecessary roughness penalties in the last 18 games, the most in the league by a defensive player. I always said that this guy reminds me of an NBA player named Draymond Green, who, knows how to walk the thin line, but sometimes crosses the line when it comes to, the rules. Like, for example, Draymond Green is a guy that reminds me of somebody who preferred to play the game in the 90s where physicality existed. And I can say the same thing about Derwin James. He wishes he played in an era where it wasn't so offensive minded and protected, but the defense could hit, a quarterback. The defense could hit a wide receiver and not get flagged for that. Obviously, you got to adapt with the times. But that's not the conversation I want to have right now. The real elephant in the room is how they are protecting Patrick Mahomes again, Queen Mahomes. Okay? Because that's what it is. A lot of people want to put 2 and 2 together and get 4. I will. Okay? The Chiefs has been getting bailed out by the NFL and the referees the last couple of weeks. And people have to peep game here. Okay? A lot of people talk about the Cowboys being America's team, and they probably still is America's team, right? But the Chiefs are the NFL's cash cow. Okay. There's a reason why they put them on Peacock in the playoff game because of Taylor Swift and simping to Taylor Swift. Okay, that was a business play. Clearly, the NFL has interest in the Chiefs three-peating this year, and clearly the referees have interest as well. And the fact that they suspend this guy for a routine tackle ahead of the Chiefs lets me know that they are trying to protect Queen Mahomes once more, like they always do with the calls. You can't hit him out of bounds. Flag. Okay, you can't breathe in this guy's face. Flag. You can't look his way. Flag. Come on.
Yeah, and I have a Chiefs fan coming on this episode as well, so we're definitely going to talk about this. But it is very suspicious. Who's been struggling? What's been the big offensive problems for the Chiefs? They can't get the tight end going? Okay, let's take out the tight end kryptonite. Exactly. The only guy, and for fairsies, to be honest, hasn't really slowed down Travis Kelce either. But the only guy that stood in his face and literally picked him up and slammed him before is up to the challenge to go against a struggling Kelce right now.
Let's not embarrass him in front of his girl. In the press box.
You take Derwin out now, and I think there's a good chance that Kelce has his first big game. Although the Chargers defense is ranked 2nd in the league right now, only behind Pittsburgh. They're playing phenomenal football with a hobbled Joey Bosa. Khalil Mack he's just legendary, and this guy's just going to be able to do this because his style of play, it doesn't really tie into the athleticism the way it did younger in his career. It's more technique, it's more finesseful and powerful. It's very fun to watch. Like, the Chargers are going to put up a fight in this game against the Chiefs, even with their backups, I feel like. But yeah, this is almost like a nail in our coffin of Derwin James getting suspended. And I see what you're saying with the roughness penalties piling up over time. The NFL has been targeting Derwin James and been telling refs to watch him for quite some time now. We have seen some calls that make sense. He has hit a guy very hard in a heated moment of a game that might have deserved a penalty. But there's also been multiple now that are on his record that the NFL is using to suspend him that were very minor, that it's clear that he is on a list of players that referees are specifically watching each week. I've been saying this since 2022, Leel, that Derwin James will probably eventually be suspended at some point in his career because I already had seen the way it had been going with the flags and how they're building a case against my guy, and that case was being built years ago, and here it is. They get the chance to finally pull it. Yeah, they finally get a chance to pull it out of the hat the week that he's playing the Chiefs.
They got a task force, bro. A task force of referees, FBI most wanted. And ironically, it happens ahead of the Chiefs game.
Yep. And it's a bang play. Like most of the hits, which I could probably clip in a few here for the viewers that are watching this, are just bang plays. Like, he's not Kareem Jacksoning people off of the face of the earth over the middle of the field. He's not playing like Merriweather or some of these other safeties that we've seen borderline get kicked out of the league in recent years for big hits. It's bang plays. He's trying to make a play on the ball as it's coming to a receiver, a big hit. Running back comes through the hole, big hit. Pat Freiermuth over the middle. This is a giant tight end, and he's got to make a tackle. Otherwise, the tight end's going to score a touchdown. So he does have to put his weight into the tackle. He does have to lean forward with his upper body to make the tackle. That isn't anything crazy. He was born in the body of Fred Warner, given the skills and the speed and the ability of Minkah Fitzpatrick and Jesse Bates, and it's a blessing and a curse because these things just happen in a split second, and they're going to continue to happen, and he's going to get suspended for 2 games next time, and then 3 games, and then 6 games. It's going to get to a point where you have to, as a coach, tell Derwin James to chill out when he goes on a football field. What are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, the NFL is about one more rule change away from flag football. The amount of flags this season, the officiating coupled with that, it's just it's ruining the game. I really feel like this is anybody's Super Bowl this year. But at the same time, although the league is wide open, like the NFC, we don't know who's that number one clear dog. The AFC, maybe the Chiefs can get got. Maybe they are vulnerable. But at the same time, all that is being washed away by the flags, the officiating, how soft the game is, and it's annoying.
And I support improvements to safety. I do. I like adding the extra padding on the helmets. I cheered that when that was released. I like some of these targeting rules. I don't want guys just getting absolutely obliterated while they're flying through the air. I like the defenseless receiver rule. I like that stuff. But when it's like helmets colliding, we're getting too ticky-tacky at this point. It happens on every play. You could point it out right there. Boom, that D lineman and that O lineman's helmet collided. Boom, on that tackle right there, the running back lowered his head, which is illegal to do. Pat Freiermuth lowered his head too. Derwin James lowered his head and his shoulders. They collided. But because he's the defensive player delivering the blow, he's responsible for pulling up in that situation. I don't agree with that part at all. And you put Derwin, like you were saying earlier, you put Derwin James in the early 2000s, in 1990, 1999, he's a Hall of Fame level safety. Yep. You put him in this era, he's one of the best safeties in the league still, but his greatest strengths aren't cheered.
Yeah, and it's not recognized, and he kind of has to adjust the way he plays now.
Which he's a lot like Rodney Harrison. It's very ironic. It's very ironic, but he's a Charger, and Rodney Harrison was a Charger, but they're very, very similar players. All right, let's move on here. And I want to talk about this real quick because it just happened last night. The Cincinnati Bengals. What the hell is going on? Joe Burrow gets a shiny new contract. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are both on contract years. Both these guys trying to break the freaking market next offseason together. The defense was improving last season. We saw it getting better and better, even with Joe Burrow injured. This is still, the Cincinnati Bengals are still participants in 2 of the last 3 AFC title games, Leel. I mean, what has happened to get to this point where their season is damn near over? No team has ever even made the Super Bowl after falling to 0-3, let alone falling to 0-3 to a rookie quarterback. And like I was saying earlier in the show, maybe the worst defense in the entire league. Before we talk about the Bengals, just very quickly, let's talk about Jaden Daniels, because that was just freaking electric. And then right after that, go into some Cincinnati Bengals talk, and we'll talk about who's to blame for this.
Yeah, definitely. I think Jaden Daniels is a guy who had his coming out party last night. And I think you have to attribute that to Cliff Kingsbury just playing to his strengths. When you watch him at LSU, he was one of the best fade throws of the football, deep down the field on those fade throws. And Cliff Kingsbury, he tapped into that. He had a couple fade throws to Terry McLaurin, the one that sealed the game and prevented Joe Burrow from getting the ball back. They was able to run the ball, a nice balance of running, option and passing the ball down the field. I thought Cliff, he coached a lot aggressive. He coached aggressive, throughout the game, kept the ball in his hands, and he empowered his quarterback. Unlike other coordinators that don't empower their guys, on 4th and 4, on other 4th downs, he kept the ball in Jaden McDaniels' hands. And I think if you're Chicago and you're looking at Caleb and his situation with his old line, with his coordinator, I mean, to me, it just made too much sense to bring in Cliff Kingsbury to pair him up with somebody he coached in college. And now I think we saw last night on full display that Cliff Kingsbury would have probably been the smarter hire there. But nevertheless, I was definitely impressed with Jaden McDaniels. Daniels. I always call him McDaniels. I always get it wrong. But he looked good. He looked like a quarterback that Washington could finally get behind since RG3. And I'm really happy for Washington because I've been in that area before. My grandmother lives down there. I've seen the people down there, and they look hopeless. I could look into their eyes and see a level of hopelessness. And the fact that they got a quarterback, people don't realize having that guy and hitting on that type of talent transforms a franchise immediately. Whatever toxicity has been going on around the franchise, and there has been a lot in that franchise, it wipes it away. And Jaden Daniels is the cure to the cancer of Washington.
Yeah, and I think to go with that even further and deeper into it, past just the offensive coordinator hire, the ownership change, everything kind of just shifting a little bit. And we were going to talk about this with the Bengals too in a second, so I can transition to it right after I say this one take. I think it was on your show that we were talking about Caleb Williams' expectations, and I put out there that Jaden Daniels was my Rookie of the Year pick, and I don't expect Caleb Williams to even win Rookie of the Year, go to the playoffs, win the division, any of that nonsense that people were saying before the season started, just because it's so hard to do. He's in a much more difficult division and in a much more difficult situation to just go in there and just make it work. Jaden Daniels is down there in Washington playing with nothing to lose, and it's working out. And I think that it's going to continue to work out this year because of how good Terry McLaurin is. And I think that they're a candidate to be a team that gets a Davante Adams or someone in here to help their rookie quarterback out even more. But to pivot back to the Bengals here, and I know a lot of people are blaming Jamar Chase, which he deserves a little bit of blame. A lot of people are blaming Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow was amazing in the game, but in certain moments, he could have been more clutch, and that's kind of what he's known for. That's what he's supposed to do, is convert those field goal drives into touchdowns. That's the difference. He's got that DNA in the red zones. Most people are blaming Zac Taylor, but I'm blaming nepotism. And here's why. Because we got to stop. When a franchise loses for 6 decades straight, maybe it has something to do with the people running the damn franchise. This franchise refused to build an O-line in front of Joe Burrow while he was still on his rookie contract, when this team had just ran to the freaking Super Bowl out of nowhere. And you refused to go all in and just bring in every single available free agent and use every first-round draft pick on O-line, because that's what they needed in that moment. This team, this organization has refused to pay guys to keep this defense at a level sufficient enough to win in the AFC, letting guys go like Jesse Bates, who is still playing at an all-pro level. It's years later now. They have refused to pay T. Higgins. They're refusing, apparently, to pay Jamar Chase. It took them Joe Burrow. If they didn't get Joe Burrow, would they have ever built a practice facility for their freaking team? I blame nepotism, because this team was owned and created by one of the legends in the sport of football, brought the sport of football to Ohio through the Browns, through the Cincinnati Bengals when he left the Browns. Paul Brown gave this team to his son, and his son has done nothing but produce mediocrity out of Cincinnati. Even with this, Leel. Even with this, bro. It is so bad. This is why I want every freaking owner that is just getting the team handed down to them from generation to generation to sell their team. I want to see what happened in Washington happen to all these bad organizations, because who bought the Washington Commanders? Sports people. People that want to see good football bought the Washington Commanders, that want to see an entertaining, exciting product. Who owns the Bengals right now? Someone who wants to lace his wallets as best as he can. And that's why Jamar Chase and him are beefing right now. And go ahead, beef with him all you want. When he's playing for another team, he ain't going to be very happy.
No, that's a good point. That's an excellent point. Ownership, sports people, Josh Harris, he already had stakes with the 76ers. Okay, so clearly they have a level of interest for the game and not just trying to fatten their pockets. Their pockets was already fat. Okay, clearly. And I agree with that. Nepotism definitely could ruin things, right? Especially when there's a level of entitlement. But when you come back to the Bengals last night, it's a tough spot. Sure, they're 0-3, But let's not forget last week they got robbed of an opportunity. They got the game taken completely out of their hands. Sure, they could have held their emotions better. Sure, Jamar Chase probably shouldn't have went after the referee like that. But we don't see those calls made often. It was made on Sunday, right? The game was stripped away from them completely and into the referee's hands. They made the calls and they lost the game. Now in this game, last night, like it just was like the breakout game of Daniels, and they wasn't expecting it. You got to blame the defense more than you blame Zac Taylor. Now I understand he's a coach, and obviously in any loss, the coach will get some type of blame, but the full blame has to be defensively because they couldn't stop a nosebleed or anything. Right now, let's look at it from this perspective. Their offense was fine. Sure, they could have scored more touchdowns than field goals, obviously, but they had no punts. Okay, they had no turnovers. All right, and they still lost the game. And they had 31 points, and they still lost the game. When you look historically, teams that had no punts, put up 30, okay, no turnovers, they are 126-0. It has never happened that a team with that stat line loses a game.
Yeah.
To me,
that sounds like a Chargers thing right there. That sounds like a Chargers thing if I ever heard it.
This sounds to me more about what the Commanders did and how good their game plan was, how good Jaden Daniels was, okay, and how they kept being aggressive in fourth down situations. The Bengals could have got the ball back late in that game, and I'm pretty sure if they got the ball back with the way how the Commanders defense looked the whole entire game, the Bengals probably would have scored and won the game. But on 4th and 4, okay, I'm going to give the ball to my best player's hands and Jaden Daniels, and we're going to end the game. And Lou Amarillo, Amarumo, he blitzed, he sent the blitz, and it created a one-on-one matchup up the sideline with Terry McLaurin. He beat his guy, and he scored a touchdown, game over. And that's where we have it. So I think, although they are 0-3, and you do have to blame them for being 0-3, you don't be 0-3 by accident. I look at last week, they got robbed. I look at this week, they got caught off guard. But now it's go time because your season is pretty much over.
Mm-hmm. This is why I go higher than Zac Taylor, and I don't think you can fire Zac Taylor because there's nowhere really to go if you fired.
Zac
you
had
Taylor.
Marvin Lewis for 16 years, and he didn't even get you to a bowl. Come on, what are we doing?
So I think you can't fire him until the offseason. And if the Bengals season goes off the rails, fire him. Let's get someone else in here. Let's get a fresh start. It's what the Bengals need anyways, especially in the AFC that's going to continue to be really good. That's why I go to the next level up because, like you're saying, they needed Jesse Bates last night in coverage, and they needed just a little bit more juice last week on offense. Maybe, Jamar Chase at practice this whole entire offseason the week before against the Chiefs. And the Patriots game, they just came out and they looked rusty as they were. And there's no reason not to be rusty when you haven't practiced in months together. So
and they also
it all can be traced back. It all can be traced back to just a lack of
they remind me of the Cowboys.
Yep. That's why I have listed down here. I have Jerry Jones. I have Jerry Jones listed on here.
Season, they
right next to Mike Brown. Yeah, I have him right next to him. Like the reason the Cowboys are failing is because Jerry Jones. So there you go. To wrap this up, and speaking of the Cowboys, let's finish this conversation off with them Dallas Cowboys. You're a Giants fan, right? I couldn't remember.
Nah, I was a Tom Brady fan.
Okay.
I follow him wherever he went.
Are you a free agent right now?
Pretty much. I
might have to start recruiting you. If we get Herbert healthy, then I'll start recruiting you.
He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league right now.
We'll keep it here. But speaking of the Cowboys, I didn't get the clip pulled up in time, but I will show it to the viewers. I don't know if you caught it. Micah Parsons was on his podcast, basically roasting C.J. Gardner-Johnson for getting excited at halftime and talking trash about the Saints in the locker room. Obviously, there was a recording that leaked, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson was caught saying, "We're playing against Derek Carr. This should be easy," or something equivalent to that. And then Micah Parsons roasted C.J. Gardner-Johnson, basically saying that Derek Carr has way more credibility than C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Now, the vibe and everything that Micah is saying, in my opinion, is really off base. But I don't know if you saw this. What did you think about this story about the Cowboys who are struggling right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a accumulation of a ranting tour that Micah Parsons is going on, because I definitely seen the clip of him calling out his teammates after the game, saying that we got to look in the mirror and all that. And clearly, he does this podcast weekly, and that's a new norm now with the athletes doing the podcast during the season, which I'm not a fan of, because I think you should be locked in. You know, there was a time and place where, you know, even a guy like LeBron James, you know, when the season kicks off, I'm off social media. But these new guys like Draymond Green, like Micah Parsons, they want to go on a podcast and they want to try to, you know, balance football and all that. I'm just not a fan of that. I don't think it's good. But how about Micah Parsons? Do me a favor. How about you go on your podcast and talk about the fact that you had 1 sack this year? Okay. Go tell that on the podcast, buddy. All right. This is the thing I don't like, is that, you know, the Cowboys have clear issues. They can't stop the run and they can't run the football. Right. And clearly there's a lot of issues there. This guy went MIA in the playoffs last year, Micah Parsons. Okay. The defense in general went MIA. Dan Quinn was a scapegoat. Okay. And instead of guys like Michael Parsons, who is supposed to be the leader of that side of the ball, he's going to be the highest paid player soon on that side of the ball. Instead of him take ownership, he rather go on his podcast and create beefs around the league and talk about other guys, instead of not bringing up the fact that he has 1 sack this year. He has to be better. The team has to be better. Clearly, they have issues that stem beyond coordination. Clearly, Jerry Jones was on a clear hibernation in the summertime when it was due for him to start paying guys. He finally paid guys. And clearly, he didn't make no acquisitions that could have benefited the team. The Cowboys are a disaster waiting to happen. And it's going to come, you know, where we are going to be disappointed because they got smoked in the playoffs, or they didn't make the playoffs outright.
I'm starting to worry about them this year, especially with this kind of stuff going on already. And I'm 100% with you on Micah Parsons' comments here. And I side with CJ wholeheartedly. He's a fiery player in the locker room playing against his old team. Yeah, say something like that. Fire up your defense. Fire up your guys around you, especially when you're one of the vocal leaders of your own squad, which C.J. Gardner-Johnson is. He's had 2 stints with the Eagles now. They brought him back and made him a captain. So, and Mike even said in the clip, like, no one knows who you are, bro. Like, everyone knows who Derek Carr is and all this stuff. And like CJ responded in his own clip. He posted his own video and he just showed the wall of jerseys, like Breece Hall, freaking George Kittle, like all the guys he's jersey swapped with and the nice messages that they wrote. And then CJ was like, hey, Micah, I'll swap with you next time we play and we'll bury the hatchet. And I was like, this is like the best thing I've ever seen CJ Gardner-Johnson do in his entire life. That man is a menace, and he goes the high road. What is going on with this world right now? I have no idea. But speaking of someone who's probably going to take the high road before we end this here and to stay on the Cowboys, Malik Neighbors is probably going to take the high road this weekend. Him and Trayvon Diggs were going back and forth on Twitter as well. Malik Neighbors was asked about it, and he said, I don't really want to talk about it right now. You know what that means? We'll talk about it after the game. And I think Malik Neighbors is going to go off against the Cowboys. This guy's a special talent. You could see it already. And Trayvon Diggs is not able to handle him one-on-one. They're going to have safety help if they know what's good for them. But Malik Neighbors is going to go off. It's actually Thursday. It's Thursday. It's in a couple days.
And if they won the football with Devin Singletary, clearly the formula, the blueprint to beat the Cowboys is there. You take up the time of possession, you soak it up. They don't know how to play with a lead. They don't know how to play coming back. So you got to build that lead. You got to keep Dak Prescott on the bench. You got to run the ball, and then you will open up. You'll pull the defense in, and then you will open up some big plays for your wide receiver, Malik Neighbors. Remember, Trayvon Diggs, he kind of slighted, I believe it was Chris Olave a couple weeks ago when they asked about Chris Olave. You know, he kind of like slighted him. You feel me? And guess what? He got torched in that game by Chris Olave. I bet you know who that is now. Malik Neighbors probably has that same ambition. So look out.
Yeah, man. The best thing to do when you're struggling and trying to figure things out is to shut up and try and figure those things out. And I'm all like, I know that a lot of people dislike the podcast thing, and you just said you dislike the podcast thing. I dislike it too when it's like this, where he's just getting in front of a microphone and just saying whatever comes to his freaking mind. I'm for it if he's talking about the Cowboys. It's like a behind the scenes almost for fans to enjoy, and he has a producer, an editor, a writer. Everyone's doing it for him. He just shows up and talks for an hour and reads the script pretty much. That's cool. That's fun. That gives you something. I know he wants to do media after, and all the listeners heard the take. It was he doesn't even know how to talk in the first place to start with. Like, he's struggling to get this take out in the first place. So he does need the practice if he wants to do media in the post career. But why don't we just keep it about the Cowboys for now? That'd probably
that's the new age athlete, the modern day athlete. A lot of people are doing it. More athletes are doing it. And Micah Parsons is a very vocal type of individual.
Yes.
And I just hope he's saying the right things in the locker room, which is different from what I've seen this week where he was calling out his plays.
And we'll see, because I never thought that him and Mike Zimmer were going to gel too well. I thought they might butt heads a little bit.
He's old school. He's an old school guy. He don't do this talking on a podcast type thing. He's an old school guy, man.
We will definitely see. Well, I appreciate you, Leel, for coming on and talking with me for about 50 minutes here. It's a good chunk of the podcast. We're gonna be posting clips from this, y'all. Make sure you guys go check out his podcast. I know I've said it. The link is in the description. It's not 99 Pod. Go ahead and plug the podcast, Leel, and anything else, any other projects you want to throw out there to the people. I will include this part in every single clip up. So this is gonna get seen maybe on 5 or 6 videos.
Definitely. I appreciate you having me. Always good talking some sports, especially football. Make sure you tune into It's Not 1999 Anymore, aka 99 Pod. You can watch the videos on my YouTube channel, Real Leel TV. Okay, we be pushing out content on a regular basis, and the show is getting better. I'm looking forward to doing more shows, and I'm excited doing this, man. My passion for sports run deep, man. I'm a sports historian, studied the game. I debated amongst my classmates in college. I almost got kicked out of my college class because I was debating some guy. I think we were talking about the college football playoff, and then the debate actually got so good that the professor stopped his lesson, and everybody was watching me and this guy debate for the rest of the period. It was wild. Okay, it just goes to show you that this is what I do.
That's why I wanted to invite you on so soon to the podcast. I'm trying to get on the people that I know bring that fire, no matter what the size of their podcast is. I don't really care. As long as you bring that fire, you bring that passion, I'm in. And every time I've went on your show, I've had a blast. So I've always had it in mind that whenever I start something, I was going to have you on.
I appreciate it.
I'm excited to get it done. Make sure you guys go check out his podcast as well, y'all. And I'm going to get Zay and Zach on here at some point too. Don't worry. It's going to happen. Just got to wait for the right moment. But let's get back to me yapping about my power rankings. It's not 1999 anymore, people. Go subscribe to his channel at the link in the description, which brings me to my next segment. I am ranking every team in the NFL every single week, starting with this week, giving you my power rankings, all 32, every team in the league. But first, one quick reminder, we're this far into the podcast. Let's get our likes up this week, y'all, on our clips, on our podcast. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications before we forget. If you're enjoying the long podcast or the short clip that I'm uploading on the channel later in the week. But let's get into my power rankings, starting from 32 all the way up to 1. I'm gonna try and give these at a reasonable speed in a reasonable amount of time for everyone to enjoy here. And my worst team in the NFL as of today is the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm just kidding. You got me. It's not the Las Vegas Raiders. It's the Tennessee Titans, because Will Levis is out there playing Mayo ball. And it's kind of crazy because the Titans are still a pretty solid team, an average team in the NFL roster-wise. They got the first-year head coach out there, so they're trying to turn things around at least. But it's just not working out with Will Levis. He is playing terrible to start this year. He's been sloppy with the football. And like I said, I've termed it Mayo ball since they want to go all in with this Mayo talk. I never thought that was a good thing. Anyways, my 31st ranked team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. We saw what just happened to them against the Buffalo Bills. I will still put the Jaguars over the Titans just slightly because I do believe in Trevor Lawrence a little bit more than I believe in Will Levis. I do believe in Doug Peterson a little bit more than I believe in Brian Callahan to turn this thing around. But one more loss for the Jaguars and a win for the Titans, and this flips. And I believe the Titans play the Dolphins, so a very winnable game for them. A game that's going to be hard to predict because I have the Dolphins way down in these rankings as well. But up next, I actually have the Las Vegas Raiders at 30, and I even can't believe, as a Raiders hater, that I have the Raiders this low by week 3 in the season. I thought they would start off hot and then things would start to fall off a cliff later on in the season. It's just been problems from the get-go. We talked about it with Leel in the segment earlier in the show, or in another clip. If you guys are watching the clipped up version of my power rankings this week, definitely go and check out that full conversation. It was a good one. It was fun to talk about what I would do to help the Raiders from here. But I have them at 30. At 29, the New England Patriots. Something I never thought I would say in my life. Having the Patriots ranked this low for obvious reasons. I have the Carolina Panthers at 28. So after their big win against the Raiders, getting Andy Dalton in there, they move up probably from 32 to 28, although we did not release our power rankings last week. So this is the first one. The Panthers will start off coming off a win at 28. Let's see if they go back down to 32. I have a sneaky suspicion that they will as we get into the season and teams, start to attack Andy Dalton a bit more than the Raiders were able to in last week's game, with them, making some business decisions as coach Antonio Pierce said him damn self. At 26, or at 27, sorry, I skipped 27. I have the Miami Dolphins. I think this is the only team in the entire league that has not led for a single second yet, which is obviously extremely ugly and something that you never want to see from your team, something that's not going to get you ranked very high in Mike's power rankings week after week if the Dolphins continue to do that. Again, they play the Titans this week. I'll give you my pick here after this segment. That's something that could go either way, in my opinion, and is going to shift these power rankings next week a ton. Bringing me to number 26, another division rival of my LA Chargers. I'm being unbiased here. Put the Denver Broncos. Big win this last week. I think that probably moved them up a few slots in this. Gave me some confidence in them over the Miami Dolphins, a team a lot of people had high hopes for going into the season. They're down their quarterback right away. A team like the Panthers coming off a big win, still put the Broncos over them. And then, of course, their division rivals, the Las Vegas Raiders, got the Broncos over them as well. So Broncos fans are probably mad that I'm ranking them this low, but look at it as a positive thing because they're trending up after that performance by Bo Nix versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if he continues to play like that, the Broncos will only continue to go up. The New York Giants are my 25th best team in the league. They showed a lot more juice on defense in last week's game and in the first 3 weeks than I thought they would have. I knew this front seven was going to be good. They added Brian Burns and they got Kayvon Thibodeau on the other side, but it's dominating right now. And if it continues to dominate, the Giants actually have a hope to, be okay. Not absolutely stinky and terrible with Daniel Jones at quarterback. If the defense can keep playing like this, I may be picking the Giants to win against the Cowboys on Thursday. But we'll see. I haven't fully decided yet. My Pickems segment is next, so stay tuned for that. The Browns are at 24. I can't back the Browns with how bad Deshaun Watson's been, even though the Browns have a sneaky roster. Something that they should be a lot better with. I got the Chicago Bears at 23, just over the Browns. I do think this is going to click later on in the season. It's kind of going how I expected it for the Bears, where their defense is performing very well, but the offense just isn't quite clicking because the quarterback is a rookie who's not your typical stand in the pocket and deliver rookie also. He's a guy that needs to build chemistry with his weapon core, needs to build chemistry with his tight ends, needs a run game to help him out right now, being a rookie in the league. And it's just not quite there yet for Chicago, but I think it will get there later in the year. And I've seen opportunities where Caleb Williams is a little bit better. They can cash in and score points and be better and even have a better record than they have as of right now. I got the Colts at 22, one of the more disappointing teams so far in the first 3 weeks of the year, followed by maybe the most disappointing team, the Cincinnati Bengals at 21, who are the highest ranked 0-3 team by a wide margin. I'm giving the Bengals some kind of benefit of the doubt here and putting them at 21 in my rankings. They deserve to be a lot lower. I agree if you guys are upset at this take. The reason is they should be 3-0. They completely flubbed those games. And you can say, yeah, they flubbed those games, so they deserve to be 0-3. But at the same time, you can use context. You can use your eyes and knowledge of the sport of football, and you can see that while the Bengals have a terrible secondary, they do have a decent pass rush. This is still going to be one of the best offenses in the league this year. They're still a playoff caliber team, even at 0-3. That should be 3-0. I just want to keep reiterating that. The refs took the Chiefs game away from them. Patriots game, they come out rusty because Jamar Chase didn't practice all offseason. And then Jaden Daniels is freaking unstoppable on Monday Night Football. and they still were in that game. They still had a chance to win that thing. So they should be 2-1. They should be 3-0. That's why I got them here at 21 in the power rankings, even though they're 0-3. And their season is practically ruined already at this point. It's be hard to make the playoffs, but it's almost impossible to make the Super Bowl from 0-3. It's never happened before in league history. At 20, I have the Los Angeles Rams, which is interesting. Super Bowl matchup from a few years ago when the Rams beat the Bengals. Very impressive upset against the 49ers this week, although that was more about the 49ers to me and what's going on there than it was about the Rams being great with Puka and Cooper Kupp still on ice, still out. So line's still beat up. The defense isn't amazing enough to cover up some of those problems on offense and make those plays that are needed to keep them in some of these games. And I don't think it's going to happen in crazy comeback fashion every week for the Rams like that against every single team. They caught the 49ers sleeping, if you will. I got the Arizona Cardinals at 19. Just smoked the Rams a few weeks ago. Took an L last week. I still believe in the Cardinals offense a ton. Lots of questions on the defensive side of the ball, obviously, which has got them down here at 19 on the bottom half of the league still. And I got the Dallas Cowboys at 18. I am completely off on the Dallas Cowboys. We talked about it more in that segment with Leel earlier in the show. So if you guys want to see that, definitely go check out the full conversation. Like I was saying, if you're watching the clip up of these power rankings. At 17, I have their division rival, the Washington Commanders. And I wanted to put this take out there in the preseason that I like the Washington Commanders more than the Dallas Cowboys, but I just didn't have the balls to do it. So I had the Commanders going 9-8 and being third in the division, tied with the Cowboys in second at 9-8 as well. It's looking like I was right. Like, this Commanders team can go 9-8, and that Cowboys team can definitely go 9-8, and I have them ranked right next to each other still, just like I did in the preseason. Got the Falcons at 16. I think that this team is in a good spot to improve drastically. They're playing far from their best football offensively, and they can get a lot better on that side of the ball, and they're still in these games. They still have a chance in this division. I think the Falcons are still going to be a good team down the stretch of this year, especially with how their defense is playing, because I just have so much confidence. The offense will come together around Kirk Cousins as they get some more time together. Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, these guys are just too freaking talented. And speaking of teams that are too talented for the record that they have, I have the Baltimore Ravens at 15. Behind my Los Angeles Chargers at 14. And I am taking the injuries into account, but also taking into account that none of the injuries are season-ending injuries. And that's something I didn't get to bring up in the segment with Leo, and I would like to bring up right now, that the Chargers dodge these bullets like the Matrix, literally, with these injuries. No one is expected to miss significant time. If anything, these guys will all be back after the Chargers Week 5 bye here the week after next, hopefully. Definitely Justin Herbert, which is the biggest one, and Joey Bosa. And definitely probably Rashawn Slater, and we'll see about Joe Alt with the MCL sprain. Chargers are banged up. They are 2-1. They were playing the Steelers really tough in that game, and they smoked their other two opponents. I think they're going to play the Chiefs really tough also, and surprise a lot of people, even with some backups filling up in spots behind New Orleans Saints. I can't deny what Saquon Barkley is behind this O-line, but I also can't deny with how much Jalen Hurts is struggling in the past 10 games or so, how much this passing offense in general is struggling, and that secondary is ugly, man, and they can't get it right. They've invested draft picks, they've invested free agency signings. They can't get it right. I don't know what they need to do to really take this to the next level, but they got to figure out the secondary problem by the end of the season. They want to compete in the playoffs at all, while Jalen Hurts also improves, which is why I kind of have them low to what a lot of people have them ranked at. Behind the Green Bay Packers, behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 10. And not even in the top 10, which start off with the Bucks. And at 9, I have the New York Jets, which we saw for the first time against the Patriots what this Jets team can be. They can be a very efficient offense that kills the clock, dominates the time of possession, that can also make a bunch of big plays down the field to Mike Williams and Garrett Wilson, and also make big plays in the run game with Breece Hall behind, a more stocked and beefed up offensive line this year. And then you go to the defensive side of the ball, they can shut down opponents and they can win games 24-3 on repeat, just like that. 27-3, 27-10, 24-10, 27-17 all year long. And I think they're going to continue to do that as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy. I got the Seahawks at 8, and this is more of a respect thing. What they've done this year, they are 3-0. I do think that the strength of schedule is the reason that the Seahawks are 3-0. I do not think that they're in the caliber of some of these other teams listed here, but you got to show them some respect. I still have them ranked behind the 49ers at 7, even with all these injuries. I think that Rams comeback was a bit of a fluke. Again, sleeping at the wheel, which you do fault the Niners for doing, but you don't necessarily expect the Niners to do that every single week. And like I said, you can take context into account when you're doing rankings, when you're doing predictions, when you're talking about these type of things. Got the Houston Texans at 6. I think that this last game was a fluke game for them too, at least in the fashion that they lost. The Vikings absolutely destroyed them. I think this is the type of team with so much talent, good coaching, good quarterback. They lock back in, they get back out there, and we see a masterful and a much better performance this week out of the Texans. What we expect to see out of Houston week in, week out as the 6th best team in the league, according to my rankings, behind the Minnesota Vikings, who just blew them out. And they beat the 49ers. They beat 2 of the best teams in the league. They beat 2 of the teams I have highest ranked in here. I have to have them 5th, but I don't have them as the best team in their division right now. I still think that is the Detroit Lions for the reason that their offensive line is just better than the Vikings. Their quarterback is just better than the Vikings. And with Jordan Addison out, I like the Lions' weapon core even better than the Vikings. Look at these defenses. Pretty comparable, pretty similar level when we talk about points per game and yardage. The Vikings are a bit more aggressive. The Vikings have been playing a lot better this year. But in general, I like the Lions defense too. I think they're a better all-around team, even at 2-1. They should be 3-0 with the Vikings if they can just complete some of these drives with touchdowns. It's been the problem for the Lions this year and their offense. They've been getting into field goal range. They've been moving the football down the field, and then drives been stalling. They're going to get that fixed. They're going to start putting up 40 points on Foos. That's what's going to happen. And they're going to get behind Gibbs, get behind Monty, and they're going to string together 8 straight wins here. And I think that's coming starting this week. At 3, you're probably confused. Who do you have at 3? The Lions are at 4. The Vikings are at 5. The Texans, 6. The Niners, 7. Who do you have at 3? I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And people might hate this because Justin Fields is their quarterback, but Justin Fields has been very improved this year. You saw what he did to my Chargers. That big play to Calvin Austin late in the game, diming us up to Pat Freiermuth over and over the middle of the field. His patience, his ability to kind of hold himself back and not make these crazy bonehead throws and fumbles when trying to scramble. It's all coming to fruition. It's all coming together in Pittsburgh behind this coaching staff. And now even Mike Tomlin has even uttered the confidence in Justin Fields, saying that they don't even need to announce him as the starter. It's obvious that this guy is not coming off the field for Russell Wilson. There's no freaking way. And if he continues to play like this, the Steelers are going to be impossible to beat because they have the best defense in football again. And it's not even close. They're giving up 8 points per game so far this year. It's absolutely insane how they do this year after year after year. But Justin Fields is actually the perfect quarterback for Pittsburgh to win 12 games because he can just run the ball, keep the possession if he's not going to turn the ball over a lot like he did in Chicago, and this defense will win them almost every single game this year. I'm serious. That's why I have them as the 3rd best team in the league, because of that defense. I have questions about the O-line. I have questions about the weapon core. I don't trust Justin Fields if a team can force him to stand in the pocket and throw. I don't. But no one's done it yet, and there's no signs of people doing it in the future because of what TJ Watt and this defense is doing. And I think that that's going to continue into the season here as we get things going more. At 2, I have the Buffalo Bills. A lot of people have the Bills at 1, and I can see the reason for having them at 1. Josh Allen's probably the MVP as of right now, very early on in the season. We've seen this happen a bunch of times. All the youngsters that needed to step up for Buffalo, for them to be able to survive the turnover they survived this offseason, they're all stepping up. Although I still have the same questions I had about the depth of this team in the beginning of the season. I still am very impressed and willing to just say, so far, completely wrong about the Bills. They got the best offense in the league currently, number 7 ranked defense according to scoring as well. This team deserves a number 1 spot, but I can't take the Chiefs out of the number 1 spot. As you guys can see, I wore my Chiefs jersey to the show today for the interview with Coach Reid, but I can't take them out of the number 1 spot. I know that Buffalo's red hot. I know the Chiefs have gotten lucky in multiple games this year with referees helping them out at the end of the games. I have to give them the credit as the back-to-back champs. I have to give them the credit with Patrick Mahomes, even when Travis Kelce's struggling. I have to give this defense the credit that they deserve for what they've done over the last couple of years. And at 3-0, the Chiefs will sit atop the league, especially with Jordan James suspended. And we're playing Travis Kelce this week, who's just salivating at the mouth because of all the media talk and rhetoric this last week. We'll see what happens next week and how my power rankings will shift. I guess sooner rather than later. The ball definitely won't lie on that one. I had Coach Andy Reid on the podcast to talk about the Chargers versus Chiefs game plan, trying to steal some secrets here. Let's get into the conversation with Coach Andy Reid. I'll put all the links to his stuff in the description below. Definitely go and check it out. You guys aren't going to believe this. I got Coach Andy Reid on the podcast for an interview and a preview of our upcoming game this week. Chargers are playing the Chiefs, and we're going to get into that. But I'm joined by Coach Andy Reid. I got a few questions for you about the upcoming game, but first of all, how you doing, Coach? It's good to talk to you. You could tell I wore some gear.
I know. I love it, man. I feel like I'm sitting with my best friends right now. Well, pretty good.
Well, yeah, we're getting along already. See, it doesn't matter that we're opponents, you know.
Yeah, usually I'm sitting down with you guys eating a cheeseburger, but I don't have any right now. So.
I actually can split a cheeseburger with you.
Yeah,
right about now. Let's try and stay focused here. Before we get into the game plan, which I'm sure you'll reveal before the game, right? You don't mind at all. I want to talk about the Chargers' new head coach. You're a legendary coach. We already know that. Multiple-time Super Bowl champion, going straight to the Hall of Fame. The Chargers hired someone that they hope is one day a Hall of Fame head coach, and it seems like everyone loves Jim. You seen that show, Everybody Hates Chris?
Yeah.
It's the opposite. Yeah. Everybody loves Jim. What's your thoughts on Jim? What's your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh, Coach? Let me know.
Like his brother a lot, John, you know. We sit back and tell jokes and stories about Jim. We won't repeat any of that right now. You know, when I saw him give his first press conference when he said he was going to live in a van down by a river, I thought, well, I'll tell you what, this is going to be a different experience there for those Chargers fans. You know, every year his eyes get a little bigger. I think his glasses get a little thicker. But I don't know, maybe I think that adds to the mystique of the man is a genius at working with people, let's say. So I'm looking forward to the challenge of playing with him. That's for sure.
Is there any any Harbaugh stories, anything embarrassing from his childhood that John shared with you?
Oh, you know, it's always, he'd put in the, take all of his, panties and stuff and pants.
Whoa. Okay. Maybe let's not talk about that. We'll steer away from the childhood, nightmares and stories. But what do you think about his fashion, though? Because I know you're a very fashionable man yourself. Seen you in some Hawaiian shirts, seen you in some shorts, seen you. I don't really like what you're wearing right now, but typically got some pretty good style. What do you think of Harbaugh's fit typically? The khakis, the polo, the glasses, the whistle, the clipboard. It's pretty iconic, I think.
I mean, it just fits his character. There's no doubt about it. He looks the part, just like I look the part whenever I can. The floral shirts and things, that's just a big guy thing. Any big guy wears Hawaiian shirts. That's just because they feel a little better, fit better.
Yeah, okay, I see. It's not really a fashion statement. It's more of a comfort thing. Maybe I shouldn't be reading so much into it, thinking that Andy Reid's.
That's right. It's from too many cheeseburgers.
Think of that. Oh, too many cheeseburgers. Exactly. The game plan is probably to eat a bunch of cheeseburgers after the Chargers game this weekend in SoFi Stadium. Y'all are coming to LA. Coach, you're going to be at the game, right? Other than on the sideline, but in the stands too.
Hey, man, the plan is, to definitely be there.
Okay. I'll probably see you there.
I don't need to be there, that's for sure.
We'll get a picture. I just want you to leak some sauce to only the listeners of the NFL Mike's Corner podcast. Yeah. What is the game plan versus the Chargers this weekend? Just pretend like we're not going to tell anyone.
Well, let's see. We won second last Super Bowl on corn dog, the last one on Tom and Jerry. So we've got a lot of themes here. We're going to call this one maybe Harbaugh Freight. And we're going to send Steele right through the line and do a lot of running this time, maybe.
That doesn't sound exciting.
I feel like we're going to be really good there because you guys are missing, is Boza going to play? and he likes to munch on quarterbacks, and then that guy in the backfield, he likes to crunch. I call him crunch and munch, and so we're going to miss those guys this week, big time. So with championship teams, oftentimes there's a little luck that comes along with that, and we're hitting you at a good time right now.
Yeah, and it's not just Joey. Obviously, Justin Herbert with the ankle. Can you maybe give us some advice on dealing with, sprained ankles at the worst possible time?
Yeah, we had Patrick Mahomes turned his knee inside out one time. That's why we took the quarterback sneak right out of the playbook. That's for sure. And so we don't like to see him run. We like to keep him in the pocket, and I always get a little nervous. And so when you've got a quarterback that likes to run, now Herbert's a pocket quarterback though, so that's not too much of a problem. But then you got those big burly linemen that fall down right on your legs and ankles. And Mahomes got caught with one of those last week. His center stepped on his foot, and we're always careful about that. That's for sure.
Yeah, and Joe Alt, Delete, got injured as well, Coach. I don't know if you saw the news. I'm sure you're watching. And Rashawn Slater. And why? I can see it under the mustache. Why are you smiling? This isn't funny.
Hey, we did want Joe Alt here in Kansas City. John played here for a long time. Was a great offensive lineman. And so, doggone, you could see when he was drafted, it was all... it was almost looking disappointment, and it was on our faces too, man. He would have been a great tackle here in Kansas City, living the legacy of his dad there. But yeah, hey, this is just the preliminary round to get into the playoffs, and I expect to see the Chargers there this week with your new coach, and this year. One team I don't expect to see there now is the Cincinnati Bengals. I think being 0-3, that puts the statistics not in their favor.
Yeah, it's not going well for them, and all the teams that are 1-2 also are struggling. Like the Chargers are 2-1, no big deal. Yeah. Imagine being 1-2 like the Raiders or the Broncos.
Yeah, I know that's amazing. And then you look at Josh Allen; he's having an MVP season right now, and some of that is you get some of the talent off your team that likes to top and chirp a little bit, and all of a sudden the team starts to come together, and boy, he looks really dangerous this year. So
maybe that's how the Raiders can get better, Coach. Maybe the Raiders need to get rid of some guys that like to talk.
Yeah, the AFC is just loaded with talent, and so this might have a different look to it now that Tua went out, and we'll see. How this all works out this season. But we're definitely hoping with Hollywood Brown when he gets back and healthy, and maybe this week that you'll see hooray for Hollywood.
Yeah, and I think this week we may also see someone else that's a Hall of Famer already probably break out, because the NFL not only has the refs on the Chiefs side, now they're suspending the players the Chargers need to stop Travis Kelce. What are we talking about? I just want to ask straight up. No one's willing to ask Andy Reid this when he goes up to the podium. I got the balls to ask. Do you guys have the refs in your corner? Do you have the NFL in your corner?
Well. Throwing away the key. That's just the way it works here. You saw it. Hey, come on. Tom Brady had those refs for years. Even Tom Brady says that wasn't a tuck now, now that it's all his career is done with, so we get lucky. Other teams get lucky. And so far that we've had some pretty good luck at times this season, and so we're hoping that continues.
Yeah, some luck that Tom Brady and the Chiefs have been getting lately. By the way, I think Tom is wrong about his own take there. That was definitely a tuck.
Well, you know what? We do have some pretty doggone good barbecue here in Kansas City. And so, we're liked by people who we want to like us. Let's just say that.
So that's the secret. Just got to make better food here at SoFi Stadium.
Sauce, baby.
But in all seriousness, what's your prediction for the game? Obviously, you're picking the Chiefs. You got the Chiefs winning by a certain score.
Yeah, whenever it's a division rivalry, which it's turned into where it used to be the Raiders, then it turned into Denver, and now it's all three. We all play pretty equally. And so I always feel like the last team with the ball, it has the best opportunity. And since Travis is struggling a little bit this year, maybe this is the game without having Crunch back there to get him back on his feet again. You know, he's been spending a little bit too much time maybe this summer with Taylor Swift. But, you know, those Swifties, I love having them here in Kansas City. They love sending me friendship bracelets. You know, most of the times it says, you know, throw the ball to Travis or else, coach. And I'm like, I thought these supposed to be friendship bracelets. They're serious. You don't mess with those Swifties. You know, I see Taylor and I say, babe, you've got the best tight end in football. And boy, you saw Travis in the Super Bowl, baby. He bumped me on the sideline when he found out I told her that. I don't know what you're talking about. So, all right, you know, that's behind us now. So we've moved on this season. That's for sure.
That is something else that I think profits the NFL very well, is all those Swifties filling up the Super Bowl every year. And they want to see those Swifties in the stadium filling up, willing to spend $25,000 on those Super Bowl tickets and loading up and stuff. It's luck, but
yeah,
you know. Anyways, to put the jokes aside for a second, I know that you're a lifelong Chiefs fan. You did not become a Chiefs fan because of Andy Reid, right?
No, but I became a bigger Chiefs fan because of Andy Reid. No, seriously, I've gained 100 pounds since he's been here. I mean, it's been
eat all those cheeseburgers. That's why
it's been rough. I'm totally serious about that. I've gained about 100 pounds since Coach has been here. You know, I'm a method actor, and so when I get out there, I got to be the man. I got to eat like the man. I got to dress like the man. And you know, people come up to me and they go, "Do you really like doing this?" And I'm like, "Well, it's worked out pretty good for me so far." So,
what was that like when the stars aligned? Like, you knew you looked like Andy Reid when Andy Reid was a Philadelphia Eagle, right?
I had no clue. No clue.
Like, you knew, like, the stars are aligning here. It's all connecting, and you're looking in the mirror, you're looking at the TV. Chiefs hire Andy Reid. Nothing's connecting.
Nothing at all until because I used to have a full goatee. I'm a professional opera singer, and so I used to always have a big beard or goatee, and so I shaved it off for Halloween one year, and for some reason I just left the mustache just for fun. I looked in the mirror and I thought, doggone, I could pull off an Andy Reid here, you know, and that's how it all started. I've got some former Chiefs that are neighbors, and I went out trick-or-treating with my kids, and old Bill Moss calls me over and says, Coach, come here. You know, and I'm like, Bill Moss thinks I'm coach, and hey, we got something going on here. There's no doubt about it. Of course, I made sure I got my candy too, you know.
Yeah. I've seen you on Super Bowl Row a few times where players have even gotten confused, like, hello? Like, is that actually him walking around? And obviously they realize it, and that's a pretty cool story that it kind of just happened magically like that. You just shaved your beard out of nowhere and just put it all together, and it starts your entire content creation career right there. But what's like the best moment you've had, you think, as a content creator so far, as a Andy Reid lookalike and doppelganger?
Well, probably the most fun experience was working with Eric Stonestreet and the writer for Modern Family. They came to Kansas City. Of course, Eric Stonestreet's one of the biggest super fans there is out there for Kansas City Chiefs. And believe me, he's for real. He knows his Chiefs trivia. He's been a lifelong fan. He's had season tickets.
Cool.
So don't mess with Eric. So they said, hey, we're going to do something fun for training camp. And of course, you know, he plays Randy Reid. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, we're going to annoy Coach, and then we're going to bring you in and pretend like you're going to take me to Kansas City, and we're going to pretend like Coach sent me as a decoy. Well, okay, so we set this all up, and that's great. I'm working with Veach and all those guys. The funny thing is, while we were filming this, Willie Gay came out, and he was in concussion protocol, and I think I kept him in concussion protocol a little longer because he was very confused when he came out and saw me here when I was supposed to be down on the field at training camp, and anyhow, it was great. We went down to Kansas City, had a fun time, but it bombed because people thought I looked too much like Andy Reid, and I didn't look like an imposter.
They were like, "Is actually Andy Reid?" And that threw off the actual joke and gimmick.
Yeah, just threw off the joke, and so Eric Stone Street, I had called me sense, but such a nice guy though. Boy, I had a great time working with him.
That's pretty awesome.
Real blessing or real privilege. I've got to work with a lot of pretty awesome people. Although I do most of the commercials with Coach, even his State Farm commercials. And so I've got to sit there and watch him eat the cheeseburgers and eat the Snickers. And I got to go in and set up the shots for the lighting and the sound. So,
so you have met Coach before?
Oh yeah, multiple times. He's just a great guy. Sorry, we're having a change of weather here in Kansas City. It's allergy season, so I've got.
Oh, no worries. Same here, by the way, in Cali. We're dealing with some issues here in Cali as well. What was Coach's reaction when he first saw you? Like his first time? He probably had seen you on TV.
First thing he said to me is, he's like, "You gonna sing for us?" And I'm like, "Holy cow!" Coach knows I sing. And I'm like, I'm real quiet around him, and I don't even have my phone. Like when I go in and work with him, I'm one of those people, I won't take my phone. I like everything to happen organically. So I never even tried to meet him. They just, my agent got me hired for this commercial. And then it's worked out so well that I've done several now. And this last one, we got to sit down and chat a little bit. And he told me, because, my friends and my family come up to me all the time. They call me and say, "Hey, I saw you at such and such." Or "Hey, what were you doing over at such and such?" And it was me. He says it happens to him all the time. People text him all the time.
That's pretty wild. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. And that kind of stuff is why I encourage everyone at any scale that you can, just make some football videos if you're not too shy. Like, it's a lot of fun. You never know what can happen. One thing can happen. You might shave your beard one day, and boom, you're sitting next to Andy Reid, looking exactly like Andy Reid, and you're a fan of the Chiefs. On top of it all, I've been, privileged and honored to interview guys like Derwin James, Mike Williams, these guys through TikTok and stuff. Like, you never know what can happen. Just make something. Just make something for fun at first and see what happens from there. I appreciate you for coming on, Coach. But speaking of making something happen, I got to show you something really quick. Okay. I'm working on a clothing brand. It is called Fifth Down. It is the extra down for fans that want to fan out extra. So we're making gear for all 32 teams. You can see my Thorbert one back there. Here, let me put a solo shot here. You can see my Thorbert one back there. That's for the Chargers fans. I'm not discriminating here. So it's on the website already if people have seen it, but I think this is the first time I put it out on the podcast. Let me know what you think of these, okay?
I love it. That's awesome, man. Hey, we got the Grim Reaper there. There's nobody down. They don't know about that. Oh, man, that's fun. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Gong. And we'll be coming out with other characters. We're trying to be like the Pokemon of the NFL.
Yeah.
So we have these for all 32 teams. Chiefs fans, if you're listening to this, we got you guys with our launch discount code 5DFAM. You see at the bottom of the screen there. You guys can get a 10% discount. And Coach, I'm gonna send you one of these. Just tell me your size, please.
Yeah.
I will get it to your doorstep as soon as humanly possible.
You got to call Omar the tent maker for your old Coach here.
We got a tent maker.
Oh, I'm a big and 5XL, baby.
We'll get the special order out. One last thing. I know that you're very involved in the community. I know that you've done a lot of stuff, not just impersonating Coach. You've done a lot of stuff with the Kansas City Chiefs community, with the Kansas City community. What is the most recent project? What are you working on right now? Anything you want to shout out or direct people towards before we sign out of here?
Yeah, there's always good ones. Q for a Cause. That's Mitchell Schwartz. He does a great Q for a Cause. And then I work with some groups for autism, Autism Speaks and things like that. here in town. And so, yeah, it's always a great opportunity. If you've got something that's a gift for you, you had better use it to give back in good ways. That's for sure. I always encourage people to do that, and I know, Mike, you do that all the time, so that's a great thing.
I try my best, man. The sport literally has given me life, like not life, but like life to my life. So I have to give back to the youngsters. I have to try and give back the best that I can as well with giveaways and stuff that I can do. But I always appreciate when I see other creators doing it, especially creators that you're doing good, Coach. You're doing great. You're killing it. You're killing it.
I'm just having a great time. I feel like I'm really blessed, and it gives me an opportunity to meet good people like you. So thank you very much.
Oh, and same back to you, other than on Sunday. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Don't message me. Don't comment.
I always tell people, we're all part of the same NFL family. And so, there's always a Raiders fan in everybody's family. And so that's okay. We're fine with that.
There's always that one.
Not on game day.
Thanks again for coming on. I will put all of his links in the description, y'all, like I was saying in the intro leading into it. Appreciate you guys. Go check out Almost Coach Andy Reid. We will see you guys next time we get to collab, where I'm sure the Chargers will have beaten the Chiefs, right?
Well, I think it's going to be a good game. There's no doubt about that. Look forward
it will be. It's going to be a fun one. All right, back to me. Yeah. Here is who's winning every NFL game of week 4. I'm picking every single game all year long and giving away jerseys to those of you who can beat me. I will let you know how you can submit your picks for a chance to win at the end of the video, as well as my upset of the week and the current Super Bowl favorite. Starting with Thursday Night Football. Dallas Cowboys are going to New York to play the Giants, and it's looking like doomsday in Dallas. Training camp, none of the fans believed. Jerry Jones had to be begged to believe in Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Micah Parsons is having his doubts on his podcast weekly. Why should I believe in the Cowboys? Give me the New York Giants this Thursday. I think the Falcons will get better and better as the weeks go on, but I look to see that Saints offense respond with another explosive win. Same thing with the Bears. They will get better as the year develops. But after seeing what I saw out of the Lambs in the second half of last week's game, they're going to be coming into this thing with momentum. And the Chicago Bears, they don't have any momentum. The Steelers have the best defense in football. Not good for a struggling Anthony Richardson. And the Jets have another chance to prove themselves to a Denver Broncos team coming off of a huge win. To rookie quarterback Robert Saleh. Lose this game and you'll lose my faith. Jalen Hurts and this Eagles passing attack is struggling. And with Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown possibly out, I'll take Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers to beat the Eagles. Dalton revenge game on the Bengals? Basically ending their season? No. I'm taking the Bengals to bring Andy Dalton back down to earth and get their first win. And I think Houston bounces back as well. And everyone's probably thinking, how can you pick against the Commanders after that performance? Well, it's because they still clearly have the worst defense in football, even with Dan Quinn. And I've been telling y'all that this Arizona offense is one of the best in football. And yeah, they weren't perfect last week. I do think the Cardinals come out with another great performance offensively from Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison and beat the Commanders, who are riding high on this short week with a rookie at quarterback, a bunch of young guys on offense and defense. Give me the Niners to beat the Patriots, even though they're really injured. And I told you Raiders fans about the Raiders. I've been telling you all offseason about the Raiders, and I'll keep telling you about the Raiders. Give me Cleveland. Which brings me to Mike's upset of the week. And y'all know I'm never going against my Chargers, so by default, this week's upset of the week will be the Chargers upsetting the Chiefs with Tyler Heineke. He's pulled off some pretty crazy upsets in his life. And the game of the week, the most must-watch football game of week 4 that's not already in prime time. It's the Minnesota Vikings going to Green Bay to beat the Green Bay Packers. I told Vikings fans, man, if they did it last week against the Texans, I will believe in them until there's a reason not to. So I believe in them against Malik Willis or Jordan Love coming back in his first game. Tonight football is going to be a real good one. Both Buffalo and Baltimore need this win. I do think the Ravens are a little bit more desperate and a lot more experienced than the Buffalo Bills. They got to use these advantages, both in experience and just flat out man-for-man talent, to find a way to get this win. Maybe this is just the Harbaugh supporter in me, but I'm taking Baltimore. One of the best possible Sunday Night Football matchups to maybe the worst possible Monday Night Football matchup. The Dolphins have not led in a game this year yet. The Titans have been playing Mayo ball. This could be really, really ugly. I will take the home team. And I got the Lions ending the Seattle Seahawks undefeated season. That's my picks before I reveal the Super Bowl favorite as of today. Make sure you guys go send in your picks after the video. It's completely free, and the winner each week will win a jersey of choice. Shout out to last week's winner who's on the screen right now. Reach out to me and DM me to claim your prize. My Super Bowl favorite as of right this second is no longer the Baltimore Ravens, the Detroit Lions. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode number 3. Had a blast in this week's episode. This is definitely our best episode yet of the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know if you did by liking the video. We're trying to get our likes up here. I think to beat last week's video, we just have to beat 10 likes. Shouldn't be too hard to do. Please, guys, like the video before you go. It helps out a ton of the algorithm. Helps support the channel. It's completely free. And then subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel already. I'm probably going to be hammering this home all season, so just subscribe. Turn on notifications. Make sure you guys are here every single time I post. What's going to happen in week 4 of the NFL season? Your guess is as good as mine, but I can assure you one thing. The ball definitely won't lie. Thank you for tuning in to another NFL Mike video. Now it's time to go make more football friends or go and compete in the Mike's Pickems challenge or against me in daily fantasy football challenges by joining my completely free NFL group chat. Or head to fifthdown.shop and check out and see if we got your team's newest designs. Or now you can simply rep your favorite players without having to wear another team's gear. And then tag us in pictures of you wearing your Fifth Down merch for a shout out in the next episode of NFL Mike's Corner. And help us reach our goal of getting 1,000 NFL fans wearing Fifth Down. Or you can head to the next NFL Mike video by clicking it. It's on your screen. Go ahead.